Now, here's a question for you. Does your accent and background affect the way in which you are perceived? Well, the Sherlock actor Benedict Cumberbatch certainly thinks it does.
Yes, he's complained about being picked on because of his privileged background.
So are we prejudiced against the well-off? Well, we're joined by Diana Mather, an etiquette expert, and Collette Walsh, who's a journalist. Before we speak to them, though, let's see what you think. Here it comes.
I was in Leeds. We used to get a lot of people come up from London, and yeah, there was definitely an element of, you know, taking the mickey out of people's accents and things, but I think if you were down south, then it would be the flip side.
I don't think there are enough people around who speak well enough, and they don't make an effort with the English language, and posh people seemingly do.
No, I don't think they get necessarily a hard time. I think there's the joke of, oh, they're posh, you know, we'll give them a hard time, but no, not really. Not any more so than any other stereotypes perhaps get a hard time.
The accent is the only thing that I've come across is when people talk in a posh accent, it's instantly mocked, isn't it? When someone says like, hello, something like that, it's like, suddenly there's a sort of a barrier that's built up with people that don't have that accent.
Let's talk to Diana and Collette then. It seems we had a nice lingering shot of you before we heard from those people, Collette. I suppose we should ask you, first of all, what you think. It doesn't matter how you speak, doesn't matter how you sound, does it?
Not necessarily. It shouldn't matter, but it does matter. And if you have been brought up with very refined and cut glass accents, it can open doors because generally that is perceived as being better educated and better brought up possibly. So in fact, you know, Benedict Cumberbatch, who has come from an extremely privileged background, he's an ex-Harrovian, which is a public school boy. He went to a very good prep school. He then went on to one of the best acting schools in the country. He's incredibly privileged. So to actually complain about being, you know, this posh bashing allegation is a little bit rich, really. It's one. Come on, as things go, it's not a really tough call, is it? You know,
there is a reverse prejudice sometimes, Diana, isn't there?
There definitely is. And in fact, funnily enough, Benedict Cumberbatch is an actor, and his parents are actors. I've worked with both his parents, and they've worked really hard to get where they were, to send him to a good school. I mean, if you can send your child to a good school, you've done the best thing for it, and education is really important. But I work all over the world, and people always say to me, you can't come from the north because you speak as I do, which is how my parents saw, but I did go to drama school as well. But it isn't so much accents, it's diction. You know, if you come from Manchester and you speak down the back and throat like that, nobody can understand what you're saying, you know. But if you have a very strong Manchester accent,
exactly
it doesn't matter if you actually pronounce the words. So it's diction that's really important. But if you speak terribly, terribly posh, like, that's just as bad. Nobody can understand anything either. So really, what we're losing is proper, clear speech. And as I said,
received pronunciation.
Received pronunciation. Because anyone in the world then can understand. But Collette has a Manchester accent, but she's got good diction, and that's what we're losing. You know, it's a sloppiness. A T and a D has almost gone out of our accent, a language at least. But to get back to Benedict,
let's go back to Benedict.
I think he's really quite a nice guy. I don't actually know him, but his father's lovely and he looks like him. I think that it is a shame, and I think that you shouldn't be stereotyped at all, you know, by the way you speak, but we are.
As stereotypes go, he's hardly Billy Elliot here, let's be honest. He's done extremely well for himself. His cut glass accent has opened
there's a change?
Accent,
do you think that, because you were talking about, you know, there is no doubt that in past decades, perhaps that type of accent education opened doors. Do you think there is a change?
Fortunately, there is. I mean, that's why the likes of me are now on BBC TV. But years
Which
ago,
wouldn't have been,
definitely wouldn't have been the case. And in fact, I think, you know, Diana referred to sort of the nasally Manchester accent there. A lot of people are very proud of their Manchester accents, actually. And, you know, I think it's the real key here is just to be authentic. Benedict was being authentic when he made these comments, but I think it says so much about him. It's incredibly arrogant. It's quite obnoxious to come up with these comments. People, you know, really struggle. People are struggling, and to be complaining about being incredibly successful and to be able to have the luxury.
I don't think he's complaining about that. I think he's complaining about the fact that people are knocking him because he's successful or the background he's come from. He can't help that background. He's lucky, if you like. But he's also worked very hard to get where he is. And he should be given that, you know, that accolade.
Isn't the fact there are always going to be people who come from different backgrounds, and there are always going to be people who speak differently. And
Thank
Isn't
goodness.
that something to be celebrated?
Absolutely.
It is to be
right.
celebrated, so
Absolutely
that's why I
right.
think a lot of people have been really irritated by Benedict's comments. It's very irritating to complain about being incredibly privileged, to have these fantastic opportunities. He's incredibly lucky to say, oh, the British are picking on me because I'm terribly posh and now I'm going to fly off to LA. Well, how many young people can say that when they're having a bad time in the UK, that they can just flit off to the United States where they'll think he's a fabulous British gentleman?
Should we give Benedict a bit of a comeback? Because he's not
go
here.
on.
We'd love him to be here. Well, I would anyway. But he's not here at the moment. He says, I wasn't born into land or titles or new money or an oil rig. And he's been castigated as moaning, rich, etc., complaining only about getting posh roles. He thinks it's domestic and so dumb.
Yeah, that's so arrogant, isn't it?
I don't know, I agree with him. I absolutely agree with him. I definitely do.
We're going to leave it there.
Okay.
Do send us your comments as well this morning. I think we'll talk about this again later, but thanks
Okay.
very much both. And you can text us, email, tell us what you think.
Lots of you already have. Right.